but
before
it's gonna.
Panama?
I've been traveling through the Balkans for the past 8 months or so. Then I
Oh,
spent a
wow.
few months in New York before that, and then I was living in Portugal before that. And
Yeah.
I travel a lot.
Sounds okay.
Awesome.
Sounds
We're
lovely
live,
out
so
there.
here we go. Welcome to the October 30th Core Circle Live. What are we doing? I'm just going to go through this very quickly. This is an experiment in co-creation. Together we can build anything. Eventually there'll be a slide here that says what the system does, which we just finished landing. Spanglish is relative. Yes, sometimes it does happen when we have Spanish-speaking people here, but today, here's the flow. We are going to do the drop-in, and Kevin Mooney is going to grace us with an invocation, and then Todd Mendeloff, I will introduce him and get him on stage, get him going, and then we can ask questions. I'll make my introduction short, something that we can, questions are going to be the best, and then we do the upload and talk a little bit about next steps, what next week's circle looks like. So here we go. Let's go to the drop-in. My name is Jose Abraham Caballer. I am obnoxious flaky, even though my background says flaky obnoxious. I got to fix that. What do I do? At the end, I'm a designer. Like, we're on a project this morning, and or creative director designer, and I realized my highest value to a client is to be their partner, ensuring that their vision gets delivered at a really high level of quality. It's like you can't change that. It's like no matter what you believe, you might be a preacher, a pirate, captain, whatever the fuck. So you just landed a $100,000 project. How do you feel and why? I feel good. I feel like, wow, yeah, damn, because it takes time to stack up the narrative and the flow or the momentum of your agency or your practice to get there, especially if you're shifting focus. But then the other feeling is a little bit of anxiety, kind of like what I was feeling yesterday, last night, and this morning, getting this project, done, the contracts, the invoicing, all this stuff, all at the same time, all very quick. The lead came in on Tuesday. We kicked off today. But it also puts us on a momentum track towards this goal that we have here in front of us. And I'm excited where we have gotten to with the collective and how this is happening, because the power of the collective is to get us here. We can do this with the people that are here. Anyway, I'm complete, and I will pick Felice and Todd. You can drop in too. I thought it would be better just to go Kevin Mooney and just get you on stage. Let's do it that way. So it's Felice, then Kevin Mooney, and then we'll introduce them. You do the invocation, Kevin, and then we just get.
Hey, was Kevin going to go do the invocation after I do the drop-in?
Yeah, I don't want that. I'm trying to de-risk you doing too long of a drop-in and taking away from your time.
No, I'll make it quick.
Okay, got it. All right, Felice, go.
Hi, my name is Felice de la Gatta. My video is dorky and then evil, obnoxious, and evil parts. I'm in Panama, and I am brand identity designer. I just landed $100,000. Okay, I had a super visceral reaction to reading the question when you put it down. This is what went through my mind. I really projected myself to the moment, and I thought, oh, fuck, now I have to do the work. And then I would think, oh, wait, I don't have to do the work because I can hire people. And then I would think, oh, I will hire people, and this will be, and then I would make $5,000 off this project. Why did I do this to myself? That is, I guess, goes to cycle. That's how I would react to getting $100,000 project. And with that, I complete. Kevin. Oh, Todd, you're going to do the drop-in then?
Yeah.
No, Kevin goes to it, and then
All right,
Todd
cool.
too.
All right.
Cool.
Oh,
I'm Kevin
oh,
Mooney.
wait. Sorry. You're right. Kevin goes last. Todd, you do the drop in. Then Kevin does it and goes into the invocation after his drop in.
Deal.
I apologize.
Jose,
That's
you're gonna
fine.
have to
That's
help
fine.
me with my Sado because
You're evil, obnoxious, probably. I don't know. You haven't
okay.
done it, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I need to. We've only been talking about it for,
Forever.
5 years. Um, Todd Mendeloff, I'm evil obnoxious on my Fedo personality assessment. I am in Wisconsin right now, in Milwaukee, enjoying the fall here, but I am usually in Los Angeles, just outside of downtown Los Angeles. And what do I do? I'm a product guy in lots and lots and lots of ways, but I'm currently I am CEO and co-founder of a early stage mobile first 3D visualization company called Zugazi. And if I just landed $100,000 project, if I'm thinking about the agency space, I guess first of all I'd be like take a moment and uh, a quick moment and enjoy that. Of like, okay, first step accomplished. Um, that's great, and then and feel that satisfaction for a moment. I believe in kind of celebrating, the achievements along the way, and then I feel like there's a bunch of work to get to, and getting that all moving across all fronts, like uh, how we're gonna, how who's gonna be working on it, how we're gonna be approaching it, um, getting the team aligned, and understanding what the goals are. Back when Jose and I were at Razorfish, one of my fundamental responsibilities I felt in terms of my account role was keeping the team focused on what the goal was, for the client. And obviously, there's typical like big deliverable, but also everything that contributes to that. So um, that's how I feel. And with that, I'm done and invocation time. I guess drop in and invocation.
That's right. Very cool.
Kevin.
Thanks, Todd. I'm Kevin Mooney. I'm obnoxious evil. I call myself a brand architect in this current moment. But much like Jose, at the end of the day, I'm a business person. I just happen to love brand and deeply understand it. And I've kind of used that as my vessel to participate in business. Um, I'm in Bend, Oregon, if I didn't say that. I just landed a $100,000 project. I feel very excited. I am going to go get a drink. I'm going to celebrate. I'm not doing any work for the rest of the day. Nothing else is happening. I'm going to bathe in it. I love that feeling of closing a six-figure job. But what I feel is anxiety because I know that I have to get another six-figure job right away. What comes with that six-figure job or project, I should say, is not only a lot of work, but bringing in help to do that work. And in order to bring in that help, I have to have something else coming in the pipeline so that I can retain those people. And that's always been probably my biggest struggle in my agency career is great, I got that, but tomorrow I got to find another one because it takes a while to land those. But ultimately I feel good, and then the anxiety kind of rolls into that. So as a part of my invocation, I want to share just a couple of stories because I've sold and delivered many six-figure projects in the past. And one of them actually was a huge reason for shutting down my agency at the end of 2023. we had this lead come in, and they were a raw materials manufacturer. Um, they owned the entire supply chain, all the way to the mines where they would mine for the materials. And they were looking for a way to bring a product to market downstream. And they ultimately decided on the power sports industry. And they were going to manufacture roll cages, wheels, and struts and things like that for ATVs and what are those called? The Polaris RZRs, right? And so the leadership team had a lot of very high quality. Sorry, high quality is not the right word. They had a lot of high profile members of the team, past CEOs of Boeing, and career entrepreneurs who have exited in the eight figures. And so when they came in, they had a really big vision for what they wanted to do. They wanted to become sort of the Red Bull of the power sports industry, the manufacturing side of things. And what we realized immediately in that selling process was these guys get it. They value brand. They value a brand first perspective. So selling that foundation that we had sold, which was in the low six figures right out of the gates, was a pretty easy process to sell. If somebody values the work that you do, the selling process is actually really easy and quick.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
what became, just so that we have more time with Todd on stage, what became the crux of it? Like, what was first of all, I responded to you saying that this is what made you close your agency with my heart, just like, hanged, right? Because I know the feeling.
Well, I'll make this a little bit shorter. I'm sorry.
No apologies.
We went through the brand foundation, which included brand strategy, visual identity, messaging, website, and launch campaigns. Then we were contracted for a larger six-figure number that we ended up taking, and that accounted for more than 50% of our revenue. And there was a misalignment at the leadership level for what the actual values were and the direction they wanted to take it. And they ended up going with a product company who said that they can do brand work. And they were very powerful, and they were able to get out of the contract. And overnight, our agency was in trouble because that revenue accounted for so much. And
you had employees.
And we had employees at the time. And we had brought on employees at that time for that project on top of the employees that we had.
Yeah.
Classic issue. And so that was the downfall of the agency. And I've had a couple of other $100,000 projects that I've proposed and then walked away from. And the invocation that I'm getting to is really about valuing ourselves and having the confidence to double, triple, quadruple our numbers and just say it. The hard part is finding people who align with us, who already believe in the work and are willing to take that ride with us or give us that shot, because we don't get those shots very often. So I think that's a pretty nice intro into Todd's talk here. I want us to keep in mind the idea of self-value and confidence as we go through this.
Beautiful. Thank you, brother. It's a great story. And Todd, the only introduction that I'm going to do for you in the form of, Todd and I worked together at Razorfish in the 2000s, early 2000s, where I was the design director of the LA office. And we did a lot of really interesting projects together, and big projects. I said it earlier while we were getting ready, as a compliment, as an account and producer and executive, now a CEO of I call it a film tech company. He embodies, like, you know, the ability to build in a very mindful and thoughtful way. So with that, Todd, I'll let you kind of reintroduce yourself and dive into the topic of selling and delivering 100K projects. We have an outline, basically. We prepped for this, but you go freestyle there.
Yeah, no, thank you, Hossein. Thanks for having me today. You know, I'm a big fan of yours and of the community and big believer in core. So it's really nice to be here. In terms of my background, I won't go into a ton of detail, but you know, spent a good chunk of my career in the agency space, at the intersection of brand and product and business, and you know, understanding what a real wide variety of different kinds of businesses from different kinds of industries need, and helping them create products, product solutions, components of products, all that sort of thing, from relatively small engagements to lots of, you know, $100,000, $500,000 engagements to, you know, multi-million-dollar engagements. Hossein and I talked in advance about like six-figure engagements, and the reality is, kind of depending on you know, where you're at, right, and and how your resources, you know, are priced, it's certainly not a small engagement, you know, but it can get lots and lots, a lot bigger than that. It's important, you know, one of the very, very earliest lessons, you know, you have is right sizing, you know, what you're proposing to what you can deliver for the price, right? And you know, knowing what resources, you know, cost you, and to the extent that you ever say, hey, I'm going to do this for cost, right? If you're doing something like that, that you're doing that at a very, in a very intentional way. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's also not a business model, is you know, an ongoing business model, you know, and it's important to always keep that stuff in mind. As we were talking about coming in, or maybe it was before we started, as we were chatting, but talking about kind of where people come at the problem from. That's a very interesting part of this for me. So to the extent that folks who are participating are interested, like, what's the problem that you see, you know, in terms of that, or your attitude in terms of like, hey, this is the thing that keeps me from getting six-figure plus engagements. And while you're maybe dropping that in the chat, I'm going to just go off on a couple of things that I know that I've run into. You know, one of them is even being on the radar, right? It's really like, how do you, when there's huge agencies and no one got fired, you know, the whole quote of like, the whole quote of no one ever got fired for buying IBM or buying Microsoft. It's the same thing is true for huge established agencies, right? So when you're a relatively small boutique firm, like, how do you get on the radar? Like, so that's one category that you think about of the kinds of companies that have the resources, right? There's no shortage of small and medium-sized companies that don't have the resources, and there's a lot don't have resources like that, and there's a lot to be said for being able to come up with a solution for them that's a business for them and for you, right? It's not just like, oh, they got something out of this, but you know, all I did was keep the lights on. You know, so that's perfectly, you know, that's a perfectly reasonable approach to that sort of thing. But let's say the local utility, right? Utilities are great businesses. Like, and by the way, one of those things is like finding businesses that aren't all that sexy, right? Everybody wants to work for global brands, and there's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes that can be incredibly fun and it can be incredibly rewarding. But the local trash company and the local electrical company and the local water company, right, are have the best subscription businesses ever, because people are gonna be using their product no matter what happens in the economy and getting on their radar screen. So how do you do that? And I'm not saying exclusively that, but just using those kinds of groups as examples, and figuring out what those kinds of companies need, looking at them, like using your business strategy brain and looking what the gaps are and what you think that they have, and establishing building blocks to finding a relationship there that gets you an audience, right? And using social media outlets for yourself to like be speaking to their needs, so that it's not just like, oh, this is a bright idea that somebody had one day, but that makes you appear to have the thoughtful mind and the thoughtful approach to the kinds of problems that they have, and how effective they are. Like, I think about when I think about an electric company, and I can say this from my own experience in Los Angeles, like occasionally, like winds blow the wrong way and palm trees, fronds fall off, and the electricity goes off in a neighborhood, because when you have really great weather most of the year, right? When you actually have real weather, right? That kind of stuff can happen. And the experience on the LA DWP website for that is pretty poor, right? And it's also one of those things that doesn't have to be poor, and that actually you could probably design something pretty quickly and get it in front of front of people, and even, by the way, get social media traction, right? Doing that sort of thing. Hey, I just had this experience. It was pretty poor. Here's what it should look like, right? and hey, is anybody at LADWP? I'd be happy to talk to you. We do great product work. We do great UX work, UI work. But finding ways to do that. And there's lots, using your creative juices to do things that will get you those audiences, and that you establish.
Let's dig into that just a little. Let's dig that into a little bit, because it sounds a little crazy, right? Like, why would anybody pay attention to me from the WP? And I think that, can you talk to the connection between because, for example, if you don't have a website that really clearly states what you do and shows examples of your expertise, if you pull that off, it's not going to necessarily help, right? Because the person at the DWP is going to validate you by looking at your website, which is primary function for the website. Second, since I think that you managed one of the, didn't we do a Razorfish LA back in the day, DWP, or one of the big?
It wasn't me, but yeah, it was another account person.
Another account person, yeah. For these non-sex, my first $100,000 client was a industrial company in Orange County. It was like $118,000. I still remember I have no idea why we bid it at $118,000, but the company wasn't sexy at all. It's all engineer driven. We made it sexy, and they were like, wow, they were so impressed with us. But they were a huge company that nobody really knew about because of what they produce. It just wasn't. They produced OEM mag stripes for like credit card swiping companies back in the day. Now they all use chips. But the reason I'm asking you to dig deeper into that, the one side having the confidence to pull something off like that, the other side, like, how believing that you can convince even a non-sexy client to work with you, how do you get over that? Like, how would you coach me to get over my own, like,
Yeah, well, I mean, so as we were coming in, we were talking about, the budget is a component of the goal, right? But the goal is filled with a lot of things that are informed by things that we do all the time as part of what we do, right? So the same sort of framework that we look at for our clients about what's your brand, what is your business, what are you trying to accomplish with your business, who's your audience, right? What is your audience looking for? What are their goals? Um, and um, and how does that all inform the product and the elements of the product that we're working for on you, right? And that may, you know, that if we're talking about a digital product, that could be as simple as a website. That's just simple, but it could be branded website with your offering and lead gen. It could be a product offering that is on the web and what that experience is like and all that sort of thing, right? But that same orientation is what you have to apply for yourselves for your own, business, for your own sales work, and thinking about it like, what's my audience? What's my audience looking for? What do they need? What do they need to say? What are the things they need help with? What are the things that if they are looking at me as a boutique agency, that they would, not dismiss me because I'm not, some massive agency, right? And play into your strengths, right? There's always strengths that like, oh, you're going to have over a big agency, that you can call out, right? Like you're going to get the attention that's worthy of you, right? We're going to be able to be responsive to you in a way that a big agency is, not going to be able to be responsive to you. Or we look at all your problems. We did our own audit of what you have, and there's a bunch of relatively straightforward table stakes that would make your clients much happier and should then make you much happier, right? And we could, can I talk to you about that? Can I get an audience to talk to you about that? And even getting that audience, like being creative and clever and scrappy about getting those audiences, like looking at the leadership, of these companies or directors of these companies and following them, in social media and seeing where they're speaking, seeing what they're posting, keeping
Getting
it
involved. Actually, that's interesting that you're saying that. Let's dig into that. Kevin in the invocation was talking a bit about or not in the invocation before we recorded. He was talking about putting down his website, etc. I think that there is an aspect of our community at this point that you have the website, you have your positioning, you have your Instagram, you have your LinkedIn content, etc., which is all great. And if you're consistent and if you're clear and if you're you have the right messaging, you really begin seeing results over time by being consistent. But for somebody like me who isn't able to potentially maintain that because I'm going too many directions and change directions too often, I use the real world, meaning like I actually go out and meet people and volunteer for nonprofits and glad hand myself through the my own entorno, as they say in Spanish, my environment. What's the role of like your network and your relationships in being able to close $100,000 projects and above?
I mean,
just to close them, to find them and close them. Let's forget about
right.
delivery and being afraid of managing cash flow after that.
So let's, one of the dynamics here is just, it's not about boldness to be able to say, hey, we should be charging this, right? It's not like, oh, hey, this is a $5,000 project, let's charge $100,000 for it, right? But there's like a lot of times, sort of like I don't have one of the things that I remember early on is like, I don't know what their budget is, right? And it's like fear of asking what their budget is. And there is like, one of the things is get rid of that, right? Like it's completely okay. Not even, it's acceptable, right? You're trying to sync up what their needs are, what they have to spend with what you can provide for them, right? And where the value that you can deliver. And too often, small agencies, solopreneur kind of folks, that kind of thing, are are worried about saying, well, what's the budget here, right? And the easy way, yeah, like, hey, I get how it's weird to say, yeah, but how much do you have to spend? And then like magically, like, oh, whatever they have to spend is what your budget is. And it's not that. You still have to have all the value, bring all the value that is involved in that, and set expectations and all that sort of thing. And the thing that for a long time, and a long ago, I don't even know where I picked it up from. It might have been Evan, but was is hey, you have some sense of your budget range here, right? And people who are there's a transparency there, right, that you're asking them for, and that should be returned too. But there's a transparency there where somebody who's really serious about the project will be able to say, hey, we're thinking, in this range, right? And part of this, it's a filter for the work too. Like the number of times that I've had the conversation with people of like, they're telling me, oh, can we have this? And we need lead gen and we need a CMS and we need a CRM integrated into it and blah, 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 blah. And it's, it, and they'll say, and you ask them this question about budget and say, well, I mean, can't hold me to this, but we might be able to spend as much as $12,000. They're like, okay, cool. I understand what your limitations are. I understand what you're looking for. You're actually helping me right size what my solution is going to be for you, right? And with what you're asking for in that price, it's going to be really hard to do something, that's meaningful. And maybe we're not the right match, right? Or if you really think that they're great, right? Amazing. And you think, you know what, I think this is a worthy partnership and maybe I think, I could see these guys really growing, let me figure out something I can do with them. On the other side, like the guys that realize what they're asking, come back and say, okay, yeah, there's the range is 150 to 250, right? But probably closer to 150, but it depends on kind of what the scope is and what's everything that's involved and what's being delivered and all of those things. So like not being afraid to ask that question and also not let them get away with not answering the question, right? If they're like, no, right, well, yeah, I mean, one of the things that Jose and I have talked about a bunch is cheerful engagement, right? Like you can be persistent and as long as you're cheerful without kind of coming off, overly strident, right? Say things with a smile, say, hey, it's a lot easier for me to be able to figure out what you want if you can, or the right size this, if you can give me an idea of what, or tell me what
I just said that to the CEO of a company. I said, look, the way I work is 100% transparency. It's much easier for me to help you if we're just honest and we put everything on the table. And and of course they didn't, but in the same scenario, I'm continuously pushing for that. I'm going to do an experiment here real quick. Let's bring everybody into the conversation because in this last 10 minutes that we have you, this is super valuable and to get to ask questions. I'll pose the scenario. What I see is that the majority of the community basically puts the prices out sometimes, like, oh, I'm doing 5,000, I'm doing this. They see themselves as solo, players, and that's how they've learned because it's easier. It's 100% easier to run on your own. And to sell a big project like Kevin just shared in the invocation can be messy and is scary, right? So with that scenario in mind, Kevin and Felice, you have Todd here. Reveal your fears. Get naked. What would you want to ask him? Etc.
Go ahead, Felice. You got something to say.
Yeah, I have a question. So Todd, you laughed when you said this, and that's a natural reaction. I also, when I think that way, I think it's kind of funny to think, but there is some truth to the fact that yes, you're selling like the 5K project that I'm selling today, I could sell it to another client for 50,000.
or
dollar.
100.
So there, or I'm sure there
200.
is that this thing actually happens. It's not about, I mean, the value theoretically, like it's not the value because there will be more value to a bigger client and just more client or different stages of business. So the value for the client changes, but um the cost is the same. Like, so the same way I make a
Right.
profit with a $5,000 project, um, that same project I could sell it for 50. There are people that sell it for 50.
Sure.
So there is some truth to that. How does that happen? And how can I do that?
Right. So that's value-based pricing, right? And but still very important to understand what your cost basis is, right? And that, hey, I'm looking to be able to, deliver this project minimally at this cost plus margin, right? And then the other part of it is when you are, say, oh, hey, these guys, and this will resonate, I think, with you, Kevin, like these guys really get brand and they get the value of the brand work. And like in that case, like I want to work with those guys, right? I want to work with those guys 100% of the time. And or at least people that like they're on that side of the spectrum, and because they will get how valuable good design is and good branding is and all that, right? And but as part of that, you there's it's more of a premium experience, right? So all the extras that you can weave into that, right? Of oh, you know what? I'm doing branding for them, but the asset delivery, right? What does that all include? And that can be a huge, ultimately a really big package, right? Or it can be, hey, it's logo, palette, typography, and that's it on the one end. Versus like, oh, hey, we're going to generate all your email signatures, right? And we'll get them in place for you, and we're going to build you an extranet that is your brand extranet with all your assets and all that sort of thing. So some of it can be expansive, a little bit more expansive on the scope that still isn't killing you, on the cost. But part of it speaks to this, ask this question early about budget, because you'll get a sense of value on it. Like how much do they value their branding? Like when they think of, hey, we need a logo, like no one just needs a logo, right? I mean, they all think they need a logo, right? But if all they're doing is saying, hey, we need a logo, and you meet with them once and say, what you really need is brand work, right? And good brand work, starts, at, 15, $20,000 and goes up from there, depending on how big you are and what they're looking for. Is that the kind of thing that you need? Right? Is that and here's why that's valuable, and here's all the things that come out of that. And logo is one of those things. And then there's a whole bunch of identity stuff that comes out of that, right? And if they're like, no, we just need a logo, and it's like, cool. If you think it's valuable to you, like I think this could be a really cool logo and I'd like to have it in my portfolio, fine, right? You can argue that's worth doing because you can drop that in your portfolio, and that's great. But if it's not, right, say, you know what, go for it. I'm not the right guy, right? When we create logos, we do it as part of a brand strategy, and there's a lot more involved in it than just like, oh, that's a neat looking logo. So ask the question, ask the budgetary question early, right? To filter out like the guys that don't have the resources to do it. That's part of it. Part of it is also upping your game in terms of who your audience is, right? Some of that is network, right? Some of that is also, one of the things I think is really cool about Core, right, is that the exercises are so rich, right? And like you can offer, hey, this is what we do. I got a really cool case study. I can show you, And hey, I'd love to come in. I'll do a 2 hour session with you guys. It's essentially a sales thing, right? And
Yep.
we'll do one of these exercises, right? And get in front of them and their audience and like have them feel like, oh wow, this is a whole thing that I didn't realize it was. A client that Jose and I did some work with recently, we at the end of the work that we did with them, they were saying, oh, I mean, you guys are really our external, brand CMO, right? So whenever there's a thing that they have to do that has to do with brand now, right, or even implicates brand, they're reaching out to us.
There's something really a very good story in there about network and about intentionality of doing it. I'm going to say this to Kevin, but I'm having this conversation this weekend with Marce, who is who usually does our invocations or has done it a few times, who's one of our core members of the circle. And that it's actually looking for what you want to be doing. Like, for example, this morning, Felice, you told me that you want to be working on nonprofits and on cultural organizations and things like that. So what I've done when I've come into a new market, a new city, is I, through serendipity, but mainly through networking and connections, found a founder of a nonprofit and just really did a great job in, showing core and, doing the strategy, doing the deck, doing all those things and really supporting that person. You're working on that project, so you kind of now know what it is. Because that nonprofit, the people that are being asked to become part of the board are all connected and are all the people that are building the city. So my contribution to this part of the conversation is who you want to work with and how you want to raise is actually pretty well defined if you do the work of defining it. So here's yours, literally, since we're doing your My Core, the quiet catalyst, right? That's you in the future, aspirational. But that quiet catalyst who has, found success and now is, in the latter parts of their life and dedicating to giving back, works with the rising, the impact rising to build things like nonprofits and organizations and invest in their startups, etc. The minute that then you have a relationship there and you do a good job at delivering, which is an outline point here, Todd, you said start small. And grow into it. Start small, win trust with a pilot or short engagement. I love your idea of going in and doing a free workshop. Here's a secret that nobody really knows. Core started to be developed while I still had my agency. We started converting all our deliverables to 8.5 by 11 for doing the core workbook, and we would give it to them, and it was a workbook and it was designed like an education thing. So we were treating their team as students, right? Of course, we were just saying, hey, we really value, I have ADHD, so we have to make things really simple. And I would hand it out to an executive team. And if you've ever been on an executive team, people are really afraid sometimes because it has nothing to do with whether anybody's good or bad. It's scary to try to meet the objectives together because no matter which way you slice it, collaboration is really hard, right? It's scary. So right. The minute that you set the table and you make it fun and the people are like, oh man, this is so good. And they get into that groove, somebody in that table will eventually leave that company and go somewhere else. Todd left where he went to Disney. He called me up, Jose, can you help me? Now I have a client who's an executive soldier who's like, look, I only have $250,000. That's my cap because otherwise I would have to get it approved. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to complain about it, but you should have more than that, but I'll take your $250,000. I'm being sarcastic, right? And the projects were so smooth. I don't remember there being, and going back to your point, Kevin Mooney, it was so smooth. Everyone knew exactly what to do. It was almost like an improv show where everything went pretty smoothly. Right. And we did a good job. Stuff got done.
Yeah, I had the benefit of having been on the delivery side previously, right? So I knew what my team needed to do in order to make the consultants and the contractors we were working with successful. And we took that all very seriously. But I mean, I guess there's two quick one comment about that. One of the things that I picked up early on at Razorfish was managing issues and risks as an ongoing part of the project, right? So that stuff doesn't become a surprise out of nowhere, right? I hate like at the ninth hour, I don't know why it's the ninth hour. Why isn't it the 23rd hour? At the ninth hour, um, like being caught off guard, like, oh, it turns out this huge thing didn't get done, right? And I was like, what? How the hell did we get here and not have that done, right? So learn to manage issues and risks, and I actually do it on the way that I do it on projects is two separate pieces. Like, hey, here's issues. Issues are generally like, hey, something that is unresolved that needs to inform the project in an important way, right? Issues can ultimately become risks when they go unresolved for a long time, right? And risks are this is putting the successful delivery of this project at risk. And there's a 3x3 matrix that you can use that manages that, that basically says, hey, the higher impact on one side and the higher likelihood on the other leads to a higher value on that 3x3 matrix. And the higher the value, the more likelihood that things are a really serious thing that people need to get their attention onto. But if you do this as a part of your weekly management of what your project is, hey, the team's getting together, here's where we are, here's what we got done, here's what's not getting done, blah, 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 blah. That all works, that it's all really important, and managing issues and risks is a central piece of that. So that's really like a project management, program management piece of the equation. I always looked at that as part of the grand purview of the account, right? The account to me isn't strictly about like, hey, how do we get more money out of this client, right? It's can we do more? Can we bring more value to them on the one side? But it's also, right. What are we doing to ensure that the thing that we committed to doing is getting delivered well and successfully, right? And I take a lot of pride that in all, yeah. I haven't had a project, go sideways on our end, right? I've had projects that like, hey, the company, restructures or something and budgets go away and they get shut down, but nothing where it's like, oh, it was becoming a train wreck on our side and we just have to, walk away or we got fired or something like that. Let me throw one other thing that is an account thing. It's part account, part.
Go for it.
It's part account, part program and project management. It's another really valuable thing, and it's a sibling to the budget question, and that's not glad handing people and not saying yes just because yes is easy to say, right? Because it is, right? When it comes to sales, when it comes to project management, when it comes to account, when it comes to a client comes to you like, oh, can you do this? Yeah, yes, right? Without any context, right? Or if it can't be like that, you're realistic with, right? And that means sometimes means saying no, but, right? No, but, right? Hey, no, we can't that it can be done, but only for this amount, right? Or not with what we have now. I'm going to be straight with you, right? Not what we have now, or not in the confines. Can that be done in 3 weeks? No, but here's what we can get done in 3 weeks, right? Or no, but we can make these 3 steps now on the path to a three months from now being able to deliver all the stuff that you're asking for. And the mistake lots of salespeople make and that lots of account people make is that they think because yes is there's no conflict in saying yes, that's just the road to success, and it's not. It's just a road to putting off the conflict that you're going to run into when you arrive at like, oh, we actually couldn't do that. I just didn't have I didn't have the Spanglish cojones to,
That's a good one.
I didn't have the cojones to be candid with the client back then, right? And part of that is also the relationship you develop with the client by being candid with them and just saying, "Hey, let me tell you," and it starts in sales, right? You're gonna have knowing like, hey, there are gonna be other people that are meeting with you about this project. They're gonna just tell you yes to everything that you want to hear right now, right? And we don't do that, right? We'll say yes to everything that can be done and everything that's reasonable and can be done, for the budget and all that all that other stuff, right? But we're not going to say yes just because it's the path of least resistance and because, I know it can there's a reverse psychology thing here. I know you're a discerning client. I know you're a discerning business person, right? But not everybody is, and some folks are fooled by a salesperson or an account person who just says yes to everything, and they're putting off the thing that's going to be a source of conflict later on. And I'd rather have a very transparent and candid and be a great business partner to you than to just have you think that I'm a great business partner because I never say no, right? I'll say no when it's appropriate, and I'll say yes when it's appropriate because I want to be a great partner to you. I want to understand your business. I want to be like an outside resource that you turn to and like you trust me and we still have a relationship 2, 3, 5, 8 years from now because
Yeah.
it goes well. Sorry, those are my two.
No. That was good. I'm glad you respectfully asked me to shut up and let you finish.
The outline from I mean, if we can distribute that outline from our earlier conversation, our pre-interview,
Yes, that's a great idea. It's in the community already, the outline, and then I'm
Great.
gonna put the outline of this. I think I'm gonna highlight 3 lessons, and I'm actually because of both the promise, but I want to make sure that we do another one of these, and then you come back and
Sure, I'd love to.
potentially now that the community kind of got a taste of it, we're gonna put yes, and so. The thing I want to highlight, and I'll do it in the form of my upload, and Todd, just the upload is a way to synthesize the learnings from the session, closest circle, and each individual, and I like it when right now core circles serve more than 5 or 6 people because it's the core of the circle, the people who have done my core, they get the benefit of asking the question. So I'm going to be short so that I can give the benefit of the synthesis to you and to Kevin and to Felice. Felice and I have been having this conversation about value and how much we're worth. And we were doing a proposal on Tuesday, and at the end of it, he kind of did his doubtful Thomas thing, and he said, "Look, I could do this project for a lot less than this." Like he was already. Sorry, Felice. Is this okay if I tell the story? I'm like totally like just outing you on this. He was poo-pooing the pricing, and I'm like, I broke down. I said, "Dude, I am motherfucking Jose. I'm like, what? No, we're not. Like, this should be 10 times this, whatever." Which is not untrue, right? But what I realized is that the connection between Kevin's, fear of not being able to deliver because of the wanting to make sure he's taking care of his employees, which is very, very much an agency thing when you're using employees, connected with the issue of your own value. You don't want to open up a portal to those projects in that scale unless you're, and all of you that are here, myself included, but you guys are actually highly sensitive people. So what I've learned from Todd and what I'm getting out of this conversation, and would love you guys to reflect on that. Respectfully, I disagree. You've been on meetings with me, Felice, recently where I'm like, I apologize, but and I go in and I say, I apologize ahead of time for what I'm about to say. Not apologize, but that's the wrong approach, but the wrong thing. But the point is that I am being respectful and kind, but also setting boundaries and containers all at the same time. Saying no is probably one of the sexiest things that you can say to us to a client, and I don't, sexy is the wrong word. Let's put it this way: I closed $1 million project by saying no, we're not going to do it that way. This is how we're going to do it. And the client's like, what? Who are you? Okay, let's work together. That's the boundaries things. And of course, that might have been when I was young, brash, and stupid, but there is a huge there's a huge wisdom in the container and saying no and being clear on your boundaries. So I'm complete, and I'll Felice, you can upload. And Todd.
Who was that, Felice?
Yeah.
Or me? Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just sorry to interrupt, but one of the things, and we've run into this on some of the stuff we've been working on, Jose, is it's kind of it's another understanding your audience sort of thing, right? Like you're Jose effing Caballero, right? And so I feel privileged to get to remind you of that sometimes, right? And that, that you're being hired not because you can push pixels around, right? Though that is an aspect of it's a component of the skills you have, but it's those skills paired with great experience, great business insights, and great taste, right? And the repetitions that you've had. Athletes talk a lot about like, oh, I needed to get the reps in to be able to get my skill level up to this level, right? That you bring for your clients, and that it's valuable, for them to understand, even if they're getting a deal, even if they're one of those clients that it's like, hey, I am going to do this at cost because I think it's something that I want to be part of, right? That they recognize that that the great value that they're getting because of like all the talent, that you bring. And sometimes I can say that. It's ways for you to say that about yourself, but it's also when, I'm working on a project with you, I can say that about you, right? We can glaze each other in front of the client, right? So the client walks away with, oh, you know what, I'm really lucky to work with these guys. So.
Yeah. That's a
Sorry,
very
Felice.
good insight. No, don't apologize.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and I find like that works with me a lot, like because I get my values by looking at the people around me that I love and thinking, oh, I just fucking respect this person. Hence, that I must not be, the last, piece of trash on the face of the earth, since people I respect love me back, right? So that works a lot with me. Yeah, so that's an approach that would be very effective for myself. What did I got out of today is, in the end, it all comes back to value, which has nothing to do with the number that you attach to it. Yeah, I love that the conversation has, gone a lot around value, providing value, and how you can, like, yeah, you can get $100,000, but the question is, what are you gonna do for it? And that is an angle that I like a lot. And it's a question that I need to answer for myself. And it was great to hear your ideas about getting access to these kind of opportunities through network and creative, like kind of outreach, which is something I definitely don't do enough. But I guess generally, in the creative community, it's something that we just don't like. It's below us. Many creatives I talk to kind of feel like it's a dirty kind of activity that they don't want to do, and some people are actually are scared of it. So yeah, this is what I'm.
Right.
Uh,
It's it's an excellent point. It's like let people know your value, right? Like you don't want to think of it as marketing or sales exactly, right? But in the end, it's like the way you're going to get hired is that somebody thinks, oh wow, I love what those guys do, that group or that individual or what they had to say. I really like to work with them or like look at the amazing work that they do as a if we're talking about small and medium sized firms, like it's a small or medium sized firm, like wow, I'm wowed, right? And then they have awareness. And if it's done in ways that can be lasting, um, you know, I mean, a lot of this is, you know, like a lot of what school did, and Chris continued to do, right, is like, oh, we put these lessons out there for anybody to see anytime. And like you can see by the millions of views that lots of them have, right? That it really resonated, with people. And that was on the education side, but you can do something similar, you know, find a way to do something similar, on the like, hey, here's who we are, here's the kind of thing that here's our philosophy and all that. And have it not be so secretive, differentiate with that value. I as an entrepreneur, like, and we're trying to raise capital, we're on that route. A lot of the parallel to that, it can be right, or a vector off of that is like, oh, well, how do you guys plan to exit, right? Like, we're trying to build a company here, right? Like, I get that you're an investor and you're interested, like, when's the liquidity event? All right. But if I'm thinking about it strictly from liquidity event perspective, I'm missing out on like what does this company have and build from a product perspective that actually gives value to a really good audience, right? Really valuable audience that needs that thing on a regular basis and willing to pay a reasonable price for that, right? And then how I can grow that. And if I build something that has value, the liquidity event stuff will solve itself, right? It will solve itself as long as it's for an audience that needs that thing on a regular basis. There's some flaws that people run into there. Where it's like I solved the problem. It wasn't a big enough problem, and it wasn't a problem that people are willing to pay for. All right, fair enough. But if it is those other things, that gets solved. And similarly, as an agency, as a creative agency, right? If you demonstrate here's the kind of value that I can bring, that I can translate. I mean, we were talking about Built for Leader, or you were showing a little bit of that stuff with Built for Leaders earlier. And the one of the huge sort of intangible things that they walked away with, or that they got from what we delivered to them, was the sense of pride and presence that they had as a company, as a startup new consultancy of a bunch of mid-career people who had built a 1,000-person consultancy previous. But even though they had done that, like once there was this brand out there and this presence out there, it gave them a level of confidence that, wow, this is us. And they felt kind of like they were batting above their batting. They're hitting above their batting average. Baseball metaphor might not be the best for everybody, but punching above their weight. And realistically, I think it's just properly representing who they are, right? And that translating that was really incredibly valuable for them. And
That's a really interesting and important. I think that we should do another live, Todd, where we actually walk through the Built for Leaders process, especially for the audience in LinkedIn. And the guys are willing to jump in, and we invite them with time to talk a little bit about the approach and the process, because there's such fidelity between the way we did core and it feels like magic at the end, because it became so clear, like what you do for the copy, based on the customer profiles, what the themes became, everything. We just really evolved from what we had done with them, and it required a certain degree of intimacy. My fear in this case scenario is that similar to a conversation I had last night with another designer, where she gets intimidated in the boardroom with executives, especially older dudes that had multiple exits. You know, she feels like, you know, I'm just a UX designer, and I had to do the thing that you do, Todd, which is like remind them of, like, you know, how amazing they are. Like, you're so and so, you've done some huge shit, and then they stand back and they're like, oh yeah, you're right. But I do that with Felice and with anybody who's in the circle. You know, I going back to his website and trying to look. You've worked with Seth Godin. You've worked with all these huge people. Like, this mindset of like, I'm, you know, just a poor brown child in the field. It's just in your head. So the end result of that conversation last night was, the person said, yeah, you know what, this is all in my head. You're right. You're totally right. And then, all right, good. Go ahead.
Not that we're talking about AI, but it's a good use of ChatGPT and AI, right? Of like, hey, let me role play that, right? You know, get some reps of like, hey, I'm going into a board meeting, and this is the profile of the people that are in there. And I'm a little nervous because I'm afraid of like the questions that they may ask that I may feel like, you know, ill-equipped. Like, let's practice this a few times, right? The same way that people use AI to practice interviews, like interviewing for gigs. But, you know, you get that repetition, and it's not just in your head. You get to do it out loud, and it's you know, very low risk, or it's no risk.
So beautiful. Kevin, you're coming in here last but not least on our roster. Thank you, Keone. This is a really great summary. It's all you, Kevin. Take us home.
Can you put that slide up so I can see the question again? I was lost in conversation there.
No problem. Hold on one second. Please hold.
It's the takeaway.
A bunch of other slides. There you go.
Yes, yeah. I'm Kevin Mooney. I'm Obnoxious Evil. My takeaway, I'm going to take a sort of a juxtaposition to where everybody else is at, and I'm not going to apologize for what I'm about to say. I'm the opposite of a lot of people. If you put me in the room with an executive, I feel right at home. I'm ready to sell. I'll close that fucking deal. I'll close 9 out of 10 of those deals. My problem is that I don't get the opportunity. I don't get the exposure or the visibility that I need to manufacture those opportunities and get those. And so my takeaway really comes from some of those insights that you said, Todd. Whether it's reaching out on social media and just pointing out a flaw that somebody's got, right? Hey, this UI UX experience here is not that great. Here's how I can handle it. I think that's great. It's maybe not my style of trying to get that visibility. Hence the reason why I'm podcasting and trying to have long form conversations around certain subjects. And the idea is that I can get in front of some of those people who do already value brand or value that level of work. And then I'm the person they either love or hate, because I'm going to show up smoking a cigar, drinking whiskey or something. But my takeaway is that I can probably do better in that networking space, that outreach space. But it's also to continue the things that I'm doing, because I'm hyper focused on that right now. I don't need 10 clients. I need 1 client a year. I would like 2 or 3 clients a year, but I mean, 2 or 3 clients at $100,000 each is a pretty all right living in this industry. And most of my work is in strategy, so I'm not producing too heavily. And I guess that's just a long way of saying that you've helped me reframe the way that I look at the content that I am creating, or the conversations that I'm having. So thank you for that.
Great.
Kevin, invite Mike Pongon on your podcast. So stop just interviewing designers and people directly, like get the people in the room, you know, to have a conversation
Yeah.
with you. I've been in the room with you and you're badass, right? Well, you know, the whole bathtub cigar thing, that you had me at that, because that's fucking, you know, like pirate style.
Yeah.
But would you be able to hang and really get along with Mike? Yeah, and you know where he lives? In Portland, Oregon, which is right down the street from you. But
All right.
the networking has to be. It's not networking. The word networking annoys the hell out of me.
Yeah, it's like
It's
brand.
it's building real. Yeah, don't get me started. It's really building relationships. I mean, to me, the main people that become your core network, and you know, no pun intended here, if you look at the graphics for this, you know, like those are the most important things. This is my thank you to Todd for all the things that I've learned, but not for the past, just for the present. I'm helping him with his startup right now, which we need to follow up on at some point. He's been helping me with my projects. He's been helping, you know, just just with love, and no, like, you know, just whatever you need, and then you build those bonds as the fabric or as the scaffolding of what of who we are, what you do, of building a life. So since Felicia and I are working on the website, you know, and Todd just mentioned your process. It is so critical for $100,000 project. You know, people might think it's pedantic, but the core process, and what I'm actually sharing with Felicia and some of our current, you know, this morning or yesterday at coffee, is like, you know, there is a quote unquote secret society, because behind the scenes, we're working on, you know, helping people like Friends Agency implement their process, etc. That process is actually the Racerfish process. It's the same process that we used at Disney with Todd. It's the same process that I use on all my big clients. I am the craziest motherfucker ever. For me to be able to put a project on rails at a big company, I feel more comfortable doing it than in a sort of chaotic company. The minute you introduce a Gantt chart and a process, and everybody sees it, repeats it, they'll follow it, right? So process is our secret, really. But actually, then you cross out process, you know, it's our secret magic, or it's our magic. Then you cross out process and you put education, so letting everybody know. And then at the end, if you cross out education, all you got is community. So the relationships and the ability to speak honestly, the ability to say respectfully, I disagree, or the ability for Todd and I to have conflict on a project where he's like, who's the freaking, it's not about the what happened, it's about the approach and us deciding on which approach we take. And I'm like, yes, I apologize, boom, you reframe, you continue, right? The biggest fear we have as creative people, aside from, you know, imposter syndrome, or from I'm too old, or, you know, I'm too broken, I've gotten beat up too many times, I've done, if you were an athlete and you've been through this many projects and dealt with so much, you know, crazy, to know what you know today, you would be LeBron James, mother effer. You would be like, so at the end, my wish for all of us, as we stand here at the precipice of the ending of this session, is, that's very dramatic to end the session, is to realize and understand that delivering $200,000 projects, $1 million projects, it's about community. It's about the cohesion. It's about the storytelling. It's about, you know, emotional regulation. It's about all the things that I'm sure the AI is going to give us in a really great summary for this. But to me, the thing I value most this moment of time, and the thing that's taken me 52 years to understand, is that the people that are around you, your circle, you know, they reflect who you are, and they hold the scaffolding of your possibility. That sounds very fucking poetic, but I just posted that on Threads. Anyway, thank you guys for being here. Todd, take us out with non-denominational hoorah.
Well, one of the things that I hear, Kevin, and I'm not, you're not the only one that feels this way, right? That notion of like, oh, networking is like, makes me like, and I actually think there's a lesson about this on the sales side too, right? It's when it feels that way, I think often, this is my take, right? But I'm sure it's not original, but when it feels like strictly transactional, I'm only talking to you because I need something from you, and do you need the thing from me, and whatever. And and as opposed to like thinking about networking and thinking about sales from a planting of seeds and nurturing those seeds to grow kind of thing. That just like literally planting seeds, like some of them grow, some of them don't. Some of them grow and literally yield fruit, and some of them just grow and it's a plant, but it's not yielding any fruit. And like nurturing your network, right? And finding like not only planting those seeds, but like looking for like other inspiring people that you want to be working with, right? And just like, I like what you're about. Let's stay in touch and talk about that. What's what you're working on and what I'm working on and what's exciting us and all that kind of thing. I'm going to throw one last thing on this, that a guy that I just recently met named Mike Mayo, who has a venture studio, I think, in Los Angeles. And he asked me, the framing of this just I loved. And again, I don't know that it's original, maybe it is, but he like left me a message like, what challenge do you have right now that you're most excited about? Right? Like, I love the phrasing of that. Like I told him immediately, like, wow, I love that, the phrasing of that. Like, instead of like thinking of like, oh, here's the grind of all the challenges I have in front of me, right? And like, well, what excites you about every one of them, right? And if something doesn't excite you, like, maybe there's something there that take a moment and think like, well, what is exciting about that challenge to me? Like, I know I need to hire a CTO, right? And I'm not sure kind of what that path is, because I think it's going to be a weaving path all over the place, right? But there's a bunch of things that when I put it in that framing, right, that gets exciting. Like, I'm going to meet with all these people who are going to be incredible technologists, and start maybe plant a seed and start a relationship with them, whether or not they end up being the candidate, and somebody that ultimately works with us or not, right? Or whatever the thing may be. But in the context, back to the context of like building a network or pursuing sales or whatever it might be, that on the face of it feels like, oh God, that's too transactional and all that. That's the transactional part of it. Like the transaction is a beautiful fruit that comes out of it, but if you can set it up and frame it up as like, oh, but what excites me about this, right? And find that and let that motivate you. I think that can be a really, you can put it in a different framework that you can find and believe in, and enjoy. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, Todd. I know you have a meeting. I know we all have to go. Kevin, Felice, any final words before we wrap?
I think I think everything. Yeah, I think I said everything. I appreciate the time and reframing some of the words that I use, because I don't like that networking. The connections is a lot better. And that's really what I'm after at the end of the day, right? I don't even care if the work comes out of it. It does, or money comes out of it. It's not a thing for me.
Good collisions.
Yes.
Felice, we'll give you the honor of having the final word as we get out of here.
Well, most important thing, guys, take care of yourself, take care of your health. Hope you wrap up the day in the best possible way, and have a good night's sleep. That's the most important thing I always say.
Thank you, brother.
Bye bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.